What is up, YouTube? It's your girl Evelyn, and today I'll be tier ranking all of your favorite and least favorite canceled lesbian shows. But before we dive in, here's a super quick rundown of the tiers. The first and lowest tier is Good Riddance, and these are shows that I was not sorry to see go. The next tier is That's Fair, because sometimes shows just run their natural course and need to end. One More Season is the next tier, and these are shows that we need one more season of, whether it's because it ended on a cliffhanger or it just wasn't around long enough to find its audience. The runner-up tier is a hate crime, because the cancellation of these shows had to be a hate crime because there is literally no reason they should have been canceled. The final and highest tier is We Outside, as in we are making moves, we are canvassing the streets, we are harassing Kelly Clarkson on Twitter, and we are fighting to get these shows back on the air by any means necessary. I have to kick things off with the most recently canceled show as of the making of this video, and that is the L Word Generation Q. And after 3 very interesting and wildly different seasons, Showtime, or Paramount, or Viacom,
it's the same thing,
has pulled the plug. And you know what? I think that's fair. And look, I love the L Word Gen Q for its gay lady representation. Not to mention, the original series will always hold a special place in my heart. But the reboot was not great. From dropped storylines to questionable writing and acting to lazy checkbox diversity, let's just say it left a lot to be desired. To be clear, I am glad Gen Q existed, but I'm ready to move on. Approximately 11 months before there was Yellow Jackets, there was The Wilds, a show about a group of girls fighting to survive in the wilderness after a plane crash. And despite being a tad bit soapy, I thought it was a pretty damn good show. But then season 2 happened, which was less damn good. Season 2 introduced a new set of male plane crash survivors.
That's a really bad idea.
But my biggest season 2 pet peeve was how goofy the whole show started to become. The suspension of disbelief required to enjoy this show is a bit much. And even though it ended on a cliffhanger,
I don't want it anymore.
That's fair. First Kill is without a doubt the most controversial cancellation on the list. Not because this show itself was amazing, because it wasn't, but it was incredibly popular. In fact, First Kill brought in more views in its first few weeks than Heartstopper, a show that went on to be renewed for 2 more seasons. So while I do think First Kill's cancellation was for sure a sapphic hate crime,
Lesbians!
I still have to acknowledge it was an objectively not great show. And I'm not talking about the campiness or the soapiness, I'm talking about the clunky ass writing, the amateurish acting, and the meandering middle of the season, which honestly just felt like they ran out of stuff for them to do until the end. But all that being said, I still believe the potential for a good show is there, and the foundation is solid, which is why I think First Kill deserves 1 more season. Warrior Nun is a show whose cancellation makes complete sense to me, but I still hate everything about it. If you haven't watched Warrior Nun, it's basically about a group of ninja nuns who hunt demons and have intense female friendships that sometimes blossom into romance. And it is just great. The women are beautiful, the cinematography is gorgeous, and it's a fun, mostly lighthearted fantasy romp. But it's also a pretty niche show, with religion playing a very large role in the plot. And look, Warrior Nun might not be a show with huge mass appeal, but it appeals to me.
No! Kelly Clarkson!
Astrid and Lily Save the World is a show only a mother could love. So this was a sci-fi network series about 2 best friends who accidentally open a portal to another dimension, and then monsters come out of the portal, so they have to kill the monsters and save the world, yada yada yada. You guys, I tried so hard to like this show, because I could tell they were going for a Buffy, Wynonna Earp, satire-ish vibe, but it just didn't work for me. The show wasn't all that funny or clever, it was wacky, but also strangely gory. And I fully admit, I only finished half of the season because that was all I could force myself to watch, which means I didn't even get to the lesbian love story. But I will say the love interest seemed like a terrible, terrible person, so I can't imagine I missed much. Like, if I could have canceled this show twice, I would have. I'm sorry, but good riddance, Astrid and Lily. Gentleman Jack, the Yorkshire lady of renown, was canceled after just 2 seasons by the current clusterfuck that is HBO.
From hero
to 0.
The thing is, Gentleman Jack is an objectively, exceptionally well-made television program. I'm talking quality on top of quality on top of quality. But similar to Warrior Nun, this show is incredibly niche, especially in the US. Like, it's set in 19th century England, and it's about lesbians and coal and land ownership. Now, personally, I would love one more season of Gentleman Jack because I think a show this well made deserves to go out on its own terms. A League of Their Own has to be the saddest cancellation on the list because it is a show that deserved so much more than what it got. It was easily the most slept-on sapphic show of 2022, and watching it felt like a celebration of queer joy during a time in which queer joy wasn't typically celebrated. It was funny, it was touching, and it made me proud. It is for sure a hate crime that A League of Their Own was canceled, and the only reason we're not outside is because we were outside. And now we have 4 more episodes, which is better than nothing. The cancellation of I Am Not Okay With This was so unfortunate because it was related to things no one had any control over, like a pandemic, a writer's strike, and the cost of PPE. The timing of this show was the worst because it was one of the best coming-of-age series Netflix has ever put out. And for those of you who didn't catch it, it's about a teenager named Sydney who's just going through typical high school growing pains, like discovering her sexuality and unexpectedly developing superpowers. Also, it was absolutely criminal to leave us with the cliffhanger of all cliffhangers. And even though I would love one more season of I Am Not Okay With This, I would settle for a movie. Just a quick little wrap-up. I would be okay with this.
I'll throw myself out.
Teenage Bounty Hunters was a goofy little Netflix series about fraternal twin sisters who become bounty hunters. And to this day, I still can't figure out why I like this show so much. Maybe because it was set in the South, or maybe because my boy Kadeem Hardison was in it, or it could have been the slight Wynonna Earp vibes. I don't know, but I do know it was a super fun show. And while I wouldn't say it had major mass appeal, I do think there was a little something in it for everyone. And I think if Teenage Bounty Hunters had been given one more season, it could have potentially found an audience that would have appreciated it. So I don't think I can accurately rank work in progress because I only watched the first season. And by the time I finally got around to attempting to watch the second season, it was gone. Work in Progress was a possibly too quirky show about Abby, a 45-year-old lesbian, and her misadventures in life. And even though I found it to be incredibly unique and pretty funny, I also found Abby to be a repellent character. And look, you absolutely don't have to like the main character of anything, but I do think it helps when it comes to keeping people watching and coming back. And who knows, maybe I would have loved season 2 Abby, but just based off the one season I watched, that's fair. If you were a slightly nerdy gay girl who grew up in the 90s, Everything Sucks was a show literally made for you, and possibly only you. I can't even express how much I love this show, but again, this was a show made for me. Honestly, it's so niche, I'm surprised it even got made. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm glad it got made, but still surprised. And even though Everything Sucks came out in 2018, I am still outside, probably by myself, but still. I know Ratched hasn't officially been canceled yet, but I'm just gonna go ahead and call it now. I highly doubt there will be a season 2, and I'll be honest, I'm not mad about it. And look, I didn't hate Ratched. In fact, I think it started off really well, but then it did that inevitable Ryan Murphy thing where his shows just devolve into batshit craziness that you can no longer take seriously. I think Ratched should have just been a limited series to begin with, but either way, I've definitely had my fill of Nurse Ratched, and I think that's fair. I'll admit, Reboot was barely gay, but the little bit of gay that it was pretty cute. Now, if you missed Reboot, it's a show about a show, specifically the reboot of an early 2000s family sitcom, and it just follows the day-to-day shenanigans of the cast and showrunner who's a gay lady. Personally, I enjoyed Reboot, but I feel like almost no one else watched it. So I think if it had one more season, there's a chance it could find more of an audience, because it really was a funny, cute little show. Wynonna Earp is the only show on the list that has been canceled twice, which is honestly impressive. Loyal Earpers from all around the globe united and saved their favorite show once, but I do think this last cancellation is probably sticking. Now, if you've been a long-time subscriber to my channel, you'll remember I recapped almost every episode of Wynonna Earp, and I always enjoyed covering the show. It's funnier than it has any right to be, and Way Hot is simply iconic. I think Wynonna Earp has had a good run, and that's fair. That is it for the video. I want to give a quick shout out to my newest patrons, Gwen, Paola, and Issa.
I'll be loving you
As always, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to let me know which canceled lesbian show is your favorite, and I'll see you in the next one.